Hey everyone, and welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. My name is Mike Vaughn, and as always, I'm not alone in this exploration of great titles,
No,
and I'm
sir.
joined by a really awesome co-host.
Yes, thank you, Michael. My name is Dillon Gonzalez, and I am a senior critic for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And I'm very excited to be here with you this week, and I have a lot of exciting things to talk about. I just wanted to talk. I just want to slow things down for just a second. This next message is like 40% just for my mom, but I got this really cool item in. It's the vinyl soundtrack to Cyrano, which is cool enough in itself, but it's actually signed by some of the creative team, which happens to be members of the National, which is one of my favorite bands. So I've been listening to this, and I'm very stoked on this movie, and I am so stoked that I want to send some of that energy out into our audience. So after the success of our giveaway the couple weeks ago, our first giveaway, I want to keep that train rolling. So I want to give away a Blu-ray copy of Cyrano starring Peter Dinklage, which I want to run this through May 17th. But for those who don't know, Cyrano, it's a great new movie with Peter Dinklage. It's one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year. It's a musical, like I said, with music from the National, and it's in my opinion, Peter should have been the one winning Best Actor at the Oscars because he does an amazing job. But this is a great film. It's now available on Blu-ray from Universal, and I want to give people a chance to win it. So like last time, let us know what your favorite or what release that we talk about this week you're most excited to check out yourself. So leave that in the comments, give us a like, and just let us know, what are we talking about that you're excited about? That's all you have to do. Just leave a comment and you can win this. And yes, we will pick a winner and we'll reach out to them after May 17th. But it's not all giveaways here. We have stuff to talk about that we've been watching. And the first one that I want to talk about is, I just got in a couple days ago. I've been holding off on watching on Disney Plus, and that is Disney's Turning Red on 4K Ultra HD. It's the new one from Pixar, and I have to say, this is probably one of the biggest hits for me from Pixar in recent years. I've seen a lot of people compare it to Inside Out in terms of the emotional resonance, and I can kind of see that. I just really love this movie. For those who don't know, Turning Red kind of concerns, it's basically an allegory for puberty. It's about this young girl who, she's 13 years old, and every time she gets excited, she turns into this red furry monster. And this movie, it's really heartfelt. I like that there's been a lot of discourse I've seen on Twitter about what children's films should or should not be talking about, and what's appropriate. But these are the types of films I know just from speaking with my wife that she wishes she would have had when she was younger, of just showcasing these issues and destigmatizing some of these kind of scarier concepts for children, which they'll have to go through anyway. And also for guys like us who don't have to experience periods, educating young boys that it's not something to just kind of blanch at and be like, ugh, I don't want to know anything about that. So whatever. But it's not just about periods. It's a fun family film. It's has this cute furry monster, but it's just a really fun, nice family film, and it's one of the better efforts I've seen from Pixar recently, which is, considering they've had Soul and stuff Oscar winners lately, that's a high endorsement for me. I love them consistently, but they're great. This 4K, it has 4K HDR, a Dolby Atmos track. The Dolby Atmos track could probably use a little bit more punch. I know some Disney releases don't quite knock it out of the park on the audio side, but still perfectly solid. The 4K is really great. The surprising thing I had with this release, I'll show you the interior. It's actually that there is a second disc of bonus features. So there's the first disc, and here's the second disc, and then the 4K disc. So there's like a whole disc for bonus features. And there's a lot of good ones. There's a full commentary track from the director. There's deleted scenes. There's featurettes like on the director and like short films. There's a lot of good stuff on here. So Disney really hit it out of the park with this release. So if you are a fan of physical media and don't want to rely just on Disney Plus and their like compression streams and everything, you want to own this on 4K. I really enjoyed it. It's a great disc, and yeah, I highly recommend it.
Nice. Yeah, I was also a really big fan of that movie. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was, as you say, kind of made sensitive topics a little more palatable and interesting. So yeah, I thought it was also really good, really well done. So my next one is from Universal, and that is Marry Me, which is a rom-com. And yes, I'm covering a rom-com. That's fine. With
I love it. I love it.
J-Lo and Owen Wilson. So slipcover, and it actually, I got to give Universal a lot of props for having a nice array of features that you can see right there. So I thought the movie was good. I was kind of dreading it, if I'm being honest. And you know, I'm always honest with y'all when I talk about titles. You know, it is very tropey, but I think that it has some interesting things to say about like social media and celebrity power couples. It's maybe not the freshest take, but I thought it was still fairly interesting. I will say Sarah Silverman is like the best thing about this movie. She is amazing, and we stan her here at the Video Attic. Also, like it's kind of an inside joke. My husband and I do like our impression of Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Where like when he goes like when he says wow.
Yeah.
Where he's like, wow.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, so like it takes me a few to really warm up, but that's a little sample for you. But like we do that sometimes ad nauseum because we're crazy. But yeah, it was fun. You said you also seen this, right?
Yes, I watched this one. I watched it again when I reviewed it, but I originally watched it on Valentine's Day on Peacock, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny, and it kind of made me wistful for me wanting major studios to make rom-coms like they used to, but make them very good, like not just like disposable rom-coms, but like really good rom-coms. The only thing that made this movie kind of pale worse in comparison is like 2 days prior, I think I had watched the new Amazon original I Want You Back with Charlie Day, which I much prefer. But this one, like if I just seen it without having like so recently seen like another almost perfect rom-com, I would be lifting it up even higher. But as it stands, this one is still really good, and I'm glad they made it.
Yeah, like I mean, like this is how I feel about rom-coms. I try not to auto hate on rom-coms. And it's just that when I think of like really good rom-coms, I think of like the stuff from like the 40s and like 50s. Like I think of like Ernst Lubitsch, I think of like Howard Hawks. Like it's kind of unfair to compare modern rom-coms with like what I consider like kind of the golden age of the genre.
Yeah.
Like It Happened One Night is a classic, and then it's like the gold standard for like romantic comedies. But you know, I think that it's a really interesting like take on a time and place and moment, which is what a lot of classic rom-coms kind of encapsulated. So yeah, it's I give it my patented it's fine. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, I was at least entertained. It was never boring, and I was engaged throughout. So um I I think they could have taken the satire a little bit, they could have went a little bit farther with it. um that's probably my biggest sort of maybe issue with the film. But yeah, I mean, you know, again, it's all right.
I mean, I can't get completely on board with that because I love really well-made rom-coms. Like I freaking love like 13 going on 30. That one, like I go through this world just wanting to feel something, and rom-coms usually make me feel something if they're done well. There's a lot of disposable ones, but ones that are done well, I really like.
Yeah, and again, like I'm trying to like there's certain genres that I feel like I have a knee-jerk reaction to, and it's not because of like anything that I'm not it's not some like macho BS or anything. It's just it's just never a genre that I've ever really had an affinity for, except for again like the really classic ones. But I'm trying to like open my world up a little bit more to like the newer ones. And yeah, again, I would still recommend it because I know some people that really like it. I mean, I know that there's some people that, you know, kind of like it in sort of like a so bad it's good kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think it's bad. I think that it's just very nearly there. I just wish that it would have been a little bit more, again, satirical in what it's kind of talking about. But like they kind of do, but they never really take it to where I feel like it's like goes to a really interesting place.
Fair enough. Are you ready for me to talk about like the polar opposite of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I am covering another Arrow box set this week, and once again, excuse my pronunciation. I think I had this right. I'm doing the Daimajin Trilogy, which I had a lot of fun with over the weekend. This is the standard edition version of this set, and it includes the 3 movies in the trilogy. And this is the time where you would find me going in depth on all 3 movies, which I'll talk about them all, but really they're pretty much the same movie, just made 3 times in a row with slight variations. From what I could tell, they were filmed pretty much all the same year, and just like they all roughly follow the same place. This is the original Daimajin, with that reversible cover art. And so yeah, this one follows like there's an oppressed society, who's like there's like a ruler who is oppressing his citizens and like forcing them into labor and everything. And the citizens are praying to their gods. It's a stone god, and he, at the end of the movie, like the last 20 minutes, he eventually comes to life and wrecks shit, and it's great. I was just showing you the Return of Daimajin, and this is Wrath of Daimajin. And the other 2 films pretty much follow the same course. They end up in slightly different ways. Like the third one, the Wrath of Daimajin here, it switches things up by taking a more kid perspective. So it follows like children, and it is kind of like almost like Stand By Me or The Goonies, where they're on this trip or like on this journey to try to like basically save their parents from this servitude, basically. And then they end up meeting the Daimajin, and he comes to life and wrecks shit. So yeah, the Daimajin. He just I love the special effects in this one. I really like whenever he just like turns from stone to like the big. It's not like exactly like Godzilla, but it's like in that kind of vein. It's just a man in a big suit, but the way they film it is really effective, and it's just something so satisfying about seeing a giant like being just taking out all these people who have been like oppressing these like low class, like low, like poverty stricken people. And they're like they get their revenge, they get their retribution, they get to get one over on their oppressors. So there's just that kind of consistent dynamic that I just really enjoy. And like, I just love the special effects. It's really well done. The transfers, they're all great. They are HD transfers that have been like restored and regraded by Arrow. There are audio commentaries on all three movies. There are introductions from Kim Newman, where he talks a little bit about the trilogy. There is a 34-minute featurette about from this woman who spent her summers in Japan, and she kind of like reflects on the Daimajin legacy. And then there's a 90-minute interview with the cinematographer, like one of the cinematographers of this trilogy. That's like really like a huge deep dive. Obviously 90 minutes, there's a lot to talk about, but it's a really great documentary. So this is packed with great special features. The picture's nice, the packaging I've already showed you looks really nice, and I just had a lot of fun with it, similar to like the yokai set I recently watched and presented. It's just a really nice fun slice of history, like a cinema, like Japanese cinema. And if this sounds fun to you at all, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's great. I actually have seen those and I really enjoyed them, but I get what you were saying about how like the other films are kind of similar, like a retread. My next one is a fairly new film, and that is Expired. It also is called Loveland, and this was released from Lionsgate. So let me show you the package. Really nice presentation, slipcover. This does come with a digital copy that's not in there right now. So let me first start saying some of the positives that I liked about this movie. First of all, have you seen this?
No, I didn't have a good feeling about it, so I didn't go for it.
Yeah, so I want to get some really good stuff out of the way. Visually, it's beautiful. Hugo Weaving is always great. The rest of the cast is pretty good. Yeah.
Continue.
I like the locations that they used. Okay, so I'm trying to be really nice. So the biggest problem is it is very, very evident that it wants to try to be like the Blade Runner films. It takes a lot of inspiration, I will just say maybe nicely, from particularly Blade Runner 2049. It has the same kind of neon world as both Blade Runners. Visually, again, they're both very similar. The lead is like a gruff Harrison Ford type, complete with the voiceover. It's kind of deals with like similar themes. It just comes off, if I'm being very frank, kind of pretentious and not that compelling. I know that it did get some kind of positive feedback. So again, even when I don't necessarily like a movie, like it's not connecting with me, it's not that I'm saying it's so bad to just not give it a chance and check it out. The presentation itself is really great. There is some extras. I really like when there's a little something extra for fans of physical media. So that's always nice. The making of isn't like exactly mind-blowing, but it gives you some extra context, which is nice. And it does have a nice 5.1 soundtrack. It definitely looks really nice on Blu-ray. Again, I like the visuals. That's sort of what was keeping me at least somewhat engaged in the content. But yeah, so it looks nice. But yeah, it just didn't connect with me, but I would say still check it out. Again, I do applaud Lionsgate for giving us some nice extras. Maybe a commentary would have been cool, because besides that just being like one of my favorite features, it also, there's a lot of times when I might not connect with the movie, but then when I hear the creators giving their like viewpoint, it kind of helps me maybe connect with it a little bit more on a different level, which the featurette did help a little bit with, but again, it was just so derivative. It was hard to really get past that, but still check it out. And I mean, as far as like the presentation on the disc is really well done.
Nice. I guess kind of going along that theme, I'm not going to be as harsh on this movie as we've talked about it previously. I know you're not a fan of this movie.
Oh, I know
but,
what it is.
yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, I watched the new RLJE release of the Djinn, which I guess, as I alluded to, we have spoken about previously offline. And okay, so first off, like, I think this movie is pretty decent. It just setting it up, it's about a young mute boy following the death of his mother, and he finds like a book of spells, and he like casts a spell that kind of goes out of control, and he wants to like gain his voice, but back and reckon with like losing his mother. But it kind of just turns into a tale of like, be careful what you wish for, and it kind of unleashes this monster, and it's kind of like a survive the night / be careful what you wish for type movie. The movie has some good moments. There's some nice sustained tension throughout, of him like trying to hide from this evil being. I know it probably seems like I'm trying to like search for good things to say, but like I said, there are things I like about it. Probably one of the things I was most intrigued by is, since he is mute, I don't believe I've seen this in a horror movie before. You've seen more than I have, so you can probably tell me if it's been done before. But since he cannot read these incantations aloud because he's mute, like he had to like sign it, which I've never, like, I was just like, would that work for an incantation? But like, I think that's cool. Like, no matter what you do, you can still like cast an incantation, which I thought was a fun touch. But it, even at like 80 minutes, I believe it is, it still kind of runs out of juice, and it doesn't end completely in a satisfying manner. It just kind of becomes repetitive. I liked it. Okay, didn't love it. I know you do not feel the same.
Yeah, I will say that and listen, I'm being totally fair. I do think, and I believe in my original review, I even said that I thought some of the concepts were really interesting. And again, I don't like to rip on a movie, especially one that I can like tell is like lower budget, but has a lot of heart. And again, I do think the concepts are really interesting. I just remember it being really inconsistent and kind of incoherent at times. And I particularly remember the ending, like being so, I want to try to say it in a nice way, but stupid, that like it kind of made my eyes twitch a little. But I mean, like, it's like you said, they do have some things that are kind of cool. And I am glad that like it connected with you. And
Yeah.
I know it did at one point have like 100% freshness rating. I know it doesn't.
Yeah. It has the Rotten Tomatoes seal of approval. So like take what we're saying at like face value.
Yeah.
I would think people should judge this one on their own because they could really love it. Like I said, I liked it. I just didn't love it. So opinions vary here.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like it would be super boring if everybody liked or disliked the same thing. It just didn't connect with me, but you dug it, and that's cool. And I will try not to like judge you. Just kidding.
Thank you.
But so I've been kind of lukewarm on the last two titles, but it's priming up for something that I was really insanely excited for whenever they first announced it. And that is the Dr. Phibes double feature from Kino Studio Classics. Gorgeous presentation. So this is a slipcover, obviously. So here's a better look at the back and the features. So it doesn't have reversible art because it's like with two movies. I don't know how you would do that, but here's the discs. And I wanted to show the disc because yes, they do put them on individual discs, which is great. Like very awesome.
I was thrilled about that. I was so thrilled. I was like, oh, they didn't pack it onto one disc.
So first of all, have you seen either one?
Yes, I just binge watched them like over the past 2 days. I was just, the reason I was peering up because I was like, I know one of these Vincent Price sets I have up here has one of them in it, but I wanted to get this release because the other one wasn't in there. So I was like, I finally wanted to sit down, and they were a ride. I had fun with them.
Yeah, so the first one is maybe full stop one of my favorite Vincent Price movies. It's gleefully campy,
Yes.
but it's very sincere. It plays like a gore-soaked love letter to Vincent Price's earlier films. It's just this wonderful Art Deco surrealist nightmare. But it's not so out there that it's alienating to even casual viewers. But if you like a more art house approach, it caters to that too. So the sequel is one that I wasn't as familiar with, so I rewatched it and then I watched it with the commentaries. So now I'm very familiar with this after viewing it with all the commentaries and everything.
Yeah.
It's definitely not as good. It's kind of weird because it like recaps and then it sort of like takes place 3 years after the events of the first film. It has a couple of the actors coming back, but it also has Peter Cushing, which is always definitely a plus. This time is sort of ancient Egypt themed, which I guess they sort of try to like thread with the theme of the first film, which is like Hebrewic, like with basing the revenge on the plagues, the biblical plagues. But it doesn't really quite work. And I don't know. It's still visually stunning. Like I really do appreciate how beautiful this movie's shot, just like the first film. And Vincent Price is still kind of at his madcap best. So I know that these have been previously released, so I did some digging for you guys. So the sequel is only, at least I think in the US anyways, only available previously on the Vincent Price Collection Volume 2, which is now,
That's
yeah.
what I got up here.
Okay. So that like I have all of those, but that is currently out of print. But nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine are
Yeah.
up yonder.
Five.
Nice.
There.
So what's nice is there is 2 new commentaries for the sequel, which is great, and they're really fun. One is Tim Lucas, and then the other is Justin Humphreys, who wrote a book about Phibes, is a super fan. He does a commentary on the first film, which I highly recommend. So the first film, they did port over the commentary tracks from volume 1, which that's the Vincent Price Collection Volume 1. So like the commentaries are ported over. Now, if you do get the reissue of Scream Factory's Vincent Price Volume 1, they do have a third commentary that is unfortunately not on this release. And that's with Steve Haberman, which, I've known Steve for a while. He's awesome. His commentaries are excellent. But this is awesome because if you want both of these films in one package, you don't have to get volumes 1 and 2. Although they're great sets, but I know volume 2 is kind of priced out for people right now that kind of missed out on it. So this is definitely a really good option. And I actually think that the transfers are just slightly better than Scream Factories, if I'm being totally honest. Like,
I want to say, like, it shares a disc with The Return of the Fly on this one, so you get more room to breathe on that one at least. So that's good.
Yeah. So I think this is great. I am was so crazily excited for this release, and it did not disappoint as far as like really great transfer. Again, these are very visually sumptuous movies. I don't know, that I think that's just, and if you like Vincent Price, I feel like especially the first film is kind of like a greatest hits, right? Like it has a lot of his familiar sort of like tropes, and but they're not done in a way that seems like mocking. Again, it's more of like a love letter to his career almost, but it's very sincere too. So highly recommend it. Again, the second one is all right. I will never not watch something with Vincent Price in it, whatever the genre, especially horror. So for like one low price, you get both of these. So yeah, that is definitely worth the buy. And if you already kind of own the Vincent Price sets, like all of them, like I do, I still think that the transfers are worth double dipping. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. Can I tell you one of my favorite moments of the first film? This isn't really a spoiler, but I was having such a blast watching it. There's a scene where he is dripping down acid onto a sleeping woman, and then whenever they discover her, it's just literally a skeleton. Like there's no like, oh, like there's some flesh left. It's like, nope, just full skeleton. And I love it. I was cackling.
Yeah, that was like some bug juice that they had like the things eat. Yeah. But oh my gosh, that, or how about like the flying unicorn thing that gets like catapulted. This movie's absurd, but if you're like willing to kind of go with the absurdity and like view it kind of as like a almost like a cartoon, It's so much fun, but it's so campy, but it's so earnest too. It straddles that line that I think is very difficult to balance, but I think it does it really extremely well.
Absolutely. Um, so switching gears a little bit, this is like, let's cut the funny business, okay? This is important.
Serious face.
But seriously, this is a really a documentary I watched earlier this year, and I'm glad it's finally getting a physical release. I wish it was Blu-ray, but I won't quibble. This is a documentary that was nominated for Best Documentary at this year's Oscars from Music Box Films. That is Riding with Fire. It is a really great documentary about these women in India who come together to form their own newspaper outlet. And here's the interior cover. So it's a completely female-run news outlet, and there's like so many corrupt news sources in India that it's like, on one level, it's nice to just have kind of more of like a objective news source at all in India, but then it's also dealing with the inequality that women face in journalism, and that they like actually set out to like all come together. Like a lot of these people that they're recruiting that want to like get into this field, they don't even know how to like use a cell phone or anything. So they have to get these women's cell phones. They have to teach them how to like work the camera so they can like shoot footage if they're like out like at a protest or like covering like any kind of event that's happening around there. You see women like going to interview women in villages who have been attacked and like interview their families, and you get to like have this insight into this world of just how these people in like these villages are being, especially women, are being taken advantage of, and there's no one really looking out for them, and they're trying to report on these events and get eyeballs onto these important issues, and they're doing it. They're really doing it. They're like, you see their numbers keep increasing. They're like they recognize that, especially in that area of the world. I know like we've known this for a while, but they realize that social media is key, and they can't just do print journalism. So they like learn how to utilize YouTube, and like you can really see them start to affect change in really like subtle ways. And just seeing you get to know these women, you get to know their backgrounds. Like some of their families don't want them doing this, but they choose to do it anyway. Or some like there's heartbreaking moments where like women do give up the pursuit of journalism because they want to like appease their family basically. And like not all women can like adapt to this technology, and like it's just really inspiring just to see how these women come together to affect change in this like area of the world. I mean, it would be impressive like in the US enough, but just like little to no resources, the women just doing it for themselves. And it's such a great documentary. I really loved it. It was kind of one of the more like low key of the international or the documentary features nominated this year, but it's definitely like one of my favorites from that group. This DVD, it does come with a Q&A, like a filmed Q&A with the filmmakers. And it also comes with a making of that's pretty great. So if you like, I'm glad that they do, like, even if it's just DVD, I'm glad they release this on physical media. I can kind of forgive it a little bit more for documentaries because I still want crystal clear like quality, don't get me wrong, but some documentaries, like, it's more like the journey, like the experience on the screen, and I can forgive that. It's a great documentary. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's so like that sounds really interesting, and I love like the range of stuff that we talk about, because that was something that wasn't on my particular radar, but I definitely want to check that out now.
Definitely, it's so good.
Yeah. So my next one is another one that like was completely something that I had no idea even existed, but it's a really interesting 1921 epic adventure film called The Indian Tomb. And this is a film that is split up into two parts. All in all, it's about 4 hours long for combined. So yeah, it's quite daunting. What's kind of cool is this is co-written by Fritz Lang, and so that's really awesome. This is, I would say, like the easiest way to describe this is like this is a blueprint for like the action adventure serials, which would later inspire like stuff like Star Wars and like most notably like in that genre anyways, Indiana Jones. Those films. So visually it is amazing. Like right out of the gate in part one, there is some like the sets and the visuals are so like impressive, especially for a film that is essentially like at this point over 100 years old, which is wild to think about. But so yeah, again, very daunting as far as like the length of the films, but I was kind of transfixed from the first few minutes and it kept me engaged throughout. Like I'm somebody that like I tend to think that my favorite genre of silent films are horror and comedy, just because they're both paradoxically like so physical and image based. But I'm trying to get myself more into like action or like comedy, or not comedy, but like dramas that I have a harder time connecting with in silent films, but this is definitely selling me on the action side of it because it is so cool and really compelling. Like I don't want to give a lot of it away, but it is a really nice mixture of like action, but it's like they have like some religious elements, I will say. But yeah, you can definitely see how this was like a blueprint for like something like Indiana Jones. So if you kind of go in it like that, I think it makes for a really compelling watch. And again, visually, it's like stunning. I should have looked up the cinematographer, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was like Carl Freund or somebody like pretty legendary like that. You know, who did like Metropolis, which was another Fritz Lang movie, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's fantastic. Again, it's one of these that was not on my radar, but sounded interesting. And again, I'm trying to push myself into more silent films of that are not like comedy or horror. So yeah, really, really good.
Awesome. Yeah. Every time Kino announces some random silent film I've never heard of, I'm just like, all right, put it on the list. Let's, because their restorations are so nice that I want to support it and check it out.
Well, it's interesting you talk about the restoration because I mean it does look fantastic, and I was doing a little digging, and apparently they've been restoring this piece by piece, you know, as far back as like the 90s and then into
Oh
like the
wow.
2000s, where they've been like, you know, discovering like more like footage and then eventually like restoring it all. I guess like they found some footage in 94 from an archive, and then they were like slowly starting to restore it. And then in the 2000s, they like found more of it and restoring it. So, I mean, this was like something that to bring to market took like literally decades. And now, you know, we have the luxury of just throwing it in our disc and watching it. But the labor of love, you can kind of see some of the stills there, but like it really is staggering. Probably hundreds of hours spent restoring this. So yeah, I can't recommend it more. It's really interesting. And again, if you kind of want to see like the genesis of like some of the later like action adventure movies, this is sort of like a, you know, proto like I said, Indiana Jones.
Awesome. I'll add it to the list. I'll add it to the list. My next film is a little bit of a departure for me, just in the sense that I don't typically cover releases that are quite this old, but I have to make an exception. I'll explain why. I am covering the 2019 release of Arrow Video's Slaughterhouse-Five from director George Roy Hill. And the reason I am doing this, I want to give a shout out. When this episode is released, it'll already be out, but I recorded this really fun podcast with my friend who hosts the Film at 50 podcast, where he talks about movies that are 50 years old. So yes, Slaughterhouse-Five just turned 50. And I had a really great in-depth conversation with him. So please go check out my episode with him on Slaughterhouse-Five. I go really deep into it. So I'm not going to go super deep into my analysis here, but we'll link it in the notes. I will say it's based on the Kurt Vonnegut book of the same name. It involves a character named Billy Pilgrim who becomes unstuck in time. So he starts experiencing stuff from his time back in the war up until his time in the future, where he's living on a different planet. And this has some of the most striking editing I've ever seen. I don't know how it did not win Best Editing. And this is a movie I think that you have to watch more than once to really appreciate, because the first 20 minutes are so disorienting that you can't really get a grasp of where you are, just like the character. But once you like really get going into it, you really start to understand the movie. And especially when I watched it again fully with the commentary, it really helped like bring everything together. And this is a great release. It has a new 4K restoration from the original camera negative. Like I said, it has a great commentary track. It has a lot of featurettes, some with the creative team, some with some of the actors that are in the movie. It has a new essay, like video essay or interview with Kim Newman, who talks about the title. And it's really just, if you're a George Roy Hill fan, like he made Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, he made The Sting, and then he decided, I have all that good like clout from that, I'm going to make Slaughterhouse-Five, which the audience is generally rejected, but like I think in time since, people have gained a new appreciation for the movie. It's a really wild movie. It's probably one of the better Vonnegut adaptations I've seen, and it's just really a great release. So please check out the movie. It's really good. Check out the release, and then check out that podcast, Film at 50. I would really appreciate it. And just like you hyped up your recent Scream interview like series, like sometimes we talk about things on multiple episodes and mediums. So you'll just have to follow us everywhere.
Yeah, and I will say that, yeah, it is a great movie. It's a great book. It's definitely, obviously, it's probably one of the most famous Kurt Vonnegut books ever, and it's so wild because it's kind of like when you were talking about Dune, how you were saying that it was like one of the quote unquote unfilmable things, and I would say that you know, that is one of those maybe very nearly hard, if not in like virtually impossible to film book, you know, adaptation. But overall, I think it does a really great job. You know, and I think it's kind of everybody's favorite Vonnegut book, but like there's kind of others that I like a little bit more. But yeah, I will definitely link that podcast so y'all can check it out. That's amazing. And yeah, I definitely agree that it's a great book and movie. So yeah, so my next title is the Film Noir Volume 6 set from Kino Studio Classics. And here's the movies. And well, I turn it up right side up there. And yeah, so I really had a blast with these. So I'm gonna like just go through these really quickly. So first, I guess I'll talk about Singapore, which is very Casablanca-y. Here's a little bit of a better. And it's also worth noting these all have commentaries, which I think is so awesome. That's, as you know, it's one of my favorite things feature wise. It means that I watched the movie like twice, sometimes 3 times. But I love it. So it definitely gives you a lot of like context with the movie, the time the movie was made. It's okay. I didn't find it as engaging as like some of the other films in this set, but the acting is really great. Like the cinematography, the music. Again, it very much feels like sort of like a Casablanca, maybe not knockoff, but something that's sort of feels very similar. I'm saving my favorite for last, actually. So
Okay.
the next one is The Raging Tide, and this one was really interesting. So there's the front and the back with the features. It's more of like a father-son sort of dynamic on a ship, and then like a stowaway that's a criminal that actually kind of finds a surrogate father in the captain. So there's like this sort of like weird dynamic, this father son, like the real father son has like a rift, but like the the stowaway criminal finds like a kind of a surrogate father in the captain. But it's a noir too, but it's very much like more drama than noir, but it's a really interesting back and forth. And again, great cast. I like Shelley Winters a lot.
Me too.
And yeah, so my favorite though is Johnny Stolepigeon.
Nice.
And that's a great name, right?
Yeah, more Shelley Winters.
Yeah, if you want to have a Shelley Winters double feature, there you go. So this is directed by William Castle, who was like known for his like horror movies, but he did do noirs. Actually, like this is how such a super fan of William Castle. Just a couple years ago, they re-released 2 of his film noirs in Mill Creek on Blu-ray. Which I did review, and I can link the I'll link that in the description as well. But this one is, again, it's definitely my favorite. It features a really young Tony Curtis, which is kind of funny. This is like only his 3rd feature film. It's a movie that has a lot of really fun twists and turns. It kind of has like William Castle's like penchant for like some morbid fun. Like there's a body they find in a coffin, which definitely kind of reminded me of like 50s William Castle with his like emergo skeletons and stuff.
Yeah.
Again, it's not like the classic of classic noirs, but it is a lot of fun. And I will say this set is really dynamite. And the commentary tracks alone, I think, are worth the set. You get a lot of great scholars that, again, kind of helped me with a lot of the context, with the, when it was filmed, like who made the film and stuff. So yeah, it's really fantastic. And like I missed out on volume 1 of this set, but if y'all haven't heard, they are re-releasing the first volume this summer, and we're getting 7 and 8 this summer as well. So I will finally, so I have volumes 2 through 6 now. So now I'll finally have volume 1 and then
Yeah.
the other ones, because like, you know, we're crazy completists, right? Like I like that missing volume like stares into my soul.
Yeah.
But luckily, you know, Kino was able to relicense some of the titles that they you know, that's why it was out of print, but they were able to get those back. And um you know, I can also put the pre-order link for that as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, really fun. More like more of this, but also definitely some more like William Castle noirs. Just putting that
Awesome.
out there in the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. My next set, yeah, I'm continuing with a set. This once again is not. This is going to be kind of similar to my experiment with the Shawscope set for people who've been watching for a while. This is a set that you yourself, Michael, covered very early on in the run of this show, and you did a really nice job of speaking about like the packaging and like doing like a brief overview of the movies. But I finally had a chance to get caught up with this set, and I just wanted to approach it from a context of drilling just a little bit closer, like down into the movies. So that's my journey right now. I'm gonna split this into like two sections. I'm gonna do 3 films first, and then my last go around, I'm gonna do 2 films. And that is the Lies and Deceit set from Claude Chabrol from Arrow Video, which includes 5 films that I pretty much binged over the weekend. And so it's pretty easy to talk about these first 2 movies because you can kind of group them as a pair. And that is Capo Van and Inspector Lavardin. And yeah, there we go. What I can say about these films are if you they're kind of like little like cozy crime like mystery films, and I would not be surprised if I heard that this was like slightly an inspiration for like Knives Out, because it kind of like the main inspector who stars in both of these films, he's kind of like a peculiar man. He like has like these little like peccadillos that like make him like an interesting detective, but he's also very good at his job. But he also just kind of really doesn't mind breaking the rules a lot of time. There's a part in Capovan where he like basically nearly drowns like a person he's interrogating in like a hotel room until like he's very close to death, until he's about to like, until he can confess some information. So this detective, he does not care. But the tone of these films, how I can best describe it is we've recently been going on a giallo journey together, and it feels like a French like a non-sleazy version of the giallo films, where there's like a detective trying to figure out this crime, but there's like less like overt murder throughout most of these movies. But they're like kooky little towns. The characters are always like there's lies and deceit. There's like people cheating on one another and holding secrets and trying to like screw over other people. And the resolutions for both of these cases, they I would say they're both satisfying on to varying degrees. I liked both of the movies quite a bit. They're probably my 2 favorite of the entire set. But yeah, they're just very entertaining movies. The third film in this set is a classic adaptation of the Madame Bovary novel, which I was asking my wife, I was like, did you ever read this in high school? She said no, but like, I was kind of like trying to tell her, like she knew kind of like some of the beats, but I was just like, all right, this is what's going down. Basically what this film is, like, for those who don't know Madame Bovary, it's basically a woman who gets married to a guy and then soon comes to regret it when she realizes he's not as like ambitious and worldly as she may have hoped, and she becomes unsatisfied in her relationship, and she kind of eventually starts to have an affair, and kind of how that spirals out and affects her world. I will admit this is not my favorite movie in the set. It is very long. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes, I believe. Yeah, just shy of 2.5 hours actually, and it is entertaining enough, but I did feel the length. And basically, what anchored this film for me was the performance from Isabelle Huppert, who she's amazing. If she wasn't in this movie, I probably would have been much more bored than I was. But she is a great actress, and she does an amazing job here. I just feel like they didn't, for as sprawling as I'm sure that novel is, I think they just need to rein it in a little bit. But I was still overall entertained because of her performance, and there were different elements that I appreciated. It's not the most dynamic movie in the set. And I will finish up the rest of the movies in my next go round. So tell me what you got next.
Sounds good. Nice little to be continued.
Yes, please don't stop this video yet. I have more.
Dun, dun, dun. So my next one is from Kino and Cohen Films, and it is also from the director of Espresso Bongo, which I know that we both enjoyed, and that is Val Guest's Jigsaw, and not to be confused with the same title of the Saw franchise, but
I saw you log this on Letterboxd, and I was like, "Oh, he's checking out the new Saw movie." And I clicked on, like, "Oh, no, that makes more sense."
Yeah. So this is another one that the title was intriguing, especially with it being, I like Val Guest. I've seen some of his other films, and again, Kino has released his other films, including Bongo. So it's kind of so I will say first off that it's not kind of as shocking or as lurid as the cover might suggest, just to give you a heads up on that. It's more of a British noir, British police procedural. It kind of has that awkward British humor that I personally love, but your mileage may vary. Having said that, it does have a lot of nice twists and turns. It's certainly not as provocative as like something like 1960s Peeping Tom, which was like a pretty groundbreaking British film. That has all the sex and violence and luridness that you'd ever want in your life, but this one is kind of tame compared to that. But there are some nice twists and turns. Obviously, like, I can't really say too much because I don't want to give it away, but again, rein in your expectations, because it certainly isn't like I was kind of thinking with like Jigsaw, not that I was comparing it to like Saw, like the Saw film Jigsaw, but like I was thinking maybe something like Pieces, where like they were gonna find different body parts and all that kind of stuff. Not really that, but still pretty interesting. And again, I kind of do have a affinity for like the sort of like cheesy dad humor, like British humor that like kind of doesn't work, but that's kind of why I love it. It's just painfully square, but it's so earnest in it though. So yeah, it's really interesting. I, again, I've seen other Val Guest movies, so it's so fun to always kind of like fill in my gaps in, like certain filmmakers. And yeah, it's interesting. It's good. I would just say keep your expectations in check, because I think I was maybe a little disappointed because I thought it was going to maybe be a little bit more like in the vein of like Michael Powell's like Peeping Tom or something. But we can't all be Michael Powell, so
Yeah.
It's like
I mean, that one does sound interesting though. I will probably pick that up in the future, just because like the cover entices me, even though you said it may not be quite as like scintillating, but like it looks intriguing.
Yeah, and again, it does have like some like really interesting sort of misdirects that I appreciate. The finale I don't think is as satisfying as I thought it would be, but I do think it was like pretty interesting. The restoration is worth noting. It looks really nice. It's a 2K restoration. And I'm not sure if it was done by the BFI. I was just like looking here, but probably wouldn't surprise me if it was. And yeah, I just kind of love how like these early kind of British noirs are kind of getting some love. I know that Kino also does a British noir series, which I can also sort of link. Those were on sale. I guess the sale's kind of over now, but like, those are also kind of worth checking out. And I'll definitely link those in the description as well.
So many links in the descriptions this episode.
It's just a Linkapalooza.
Yeah. Rounding out my titles for this week, the next film in this Claude Chabrol Lies and Deceit set is Betty, which I mostly liked. I will say it's a tough watch because basically the movie starts out with this character in a real down spot. You learn that she gave up the rights to her children after being caught having an affair, and she gets taken in the course of like this drunken stupor by this like lady who tries to rehabilitate her and take care of her, but she also has some problems, like a history of her own, and they kind of become friendly as Betty recalls how she got to that point in her life. And basically what makes this film like a tough watch is Betty is a hot mess, but it's partly because of the environment that she has been in. She gets kind of caught up in this aristocratic like family, and there's like a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of like, she's not kind of nurtured for who she is. She's kind of just used as like a vessel for the next generation in that line. But she deserves to take some of the blame for what happens to her as well. So it's kind of like an interesting look at like what happens to a person at their lowest, and just a person consistently making the worst decisions for themselves. So if that sounds exasperating, this will probably be an exasperating experience for you. But there is like a part of me that's like oddly fascinated by it. Like, it's well done. It's just such a tough watch. But it's an engaging enough movie, I guess. This final movie, talk about tough watches, but I really like this movie. It's like, whew, it is Torment. And so the thing about this film, it is about toxic relationships. And basically the film starts out with this man and this woman meeting, and she's like a very beautiful woman. She's like known to be a beautiful woman. And this guy, he meets her, they get married, and pretty much like it starts out slow at first, but then it can like ramps up. The whole film is basically in his mind, he slowly starts going a little bit more suspicious and gets a little crazier, thinking that his wife might be cheating on him. And just like every single thing she does, he's just like, she's cheating on me. She's cheating on me. Like every man she talks to, he starts like having these fantasies of what she might be doing when she rounds the corner. And it starts driving him insane. And he slowly starts to get like more paranoid, more like almost violent. And this sustains for like an hour and 45 minutes. It's very emotionally taxing, but like psychologically fascinating, of just a person slowly losing it, thinking that their partner might be cheating on them. And then in the process of like confronting her with this is what like starts driving her away. So he's like the architect of his own destruction in this thing. It's very well acted. It's super frustrating, but like it's a fascinating portrait of toxic relationships. And all these films, they have terrific HD presentations, restored HD presentations from Era Video. All the films come with audio commentary. Every film contains select scene commentary, usually about 30 to 40 minutes worth from director Claude Chabrol. There are plenty of like featurettes and like appreciation featurettes and like interviews with the actors. And yeah, it's a really great set. This is the limited edition set with the booklet here. And it's just, if you like French cinema especially, I think this is a really strong set. I did not know much about the director before embarking on this, but now I'm very intrigued to get to his Twisting the Knife box set, which as this episode posts, it should be the release day for that from Arrow. So look out for that. I think we're going to be covering that in a future episode. So I'll do a lot of good stuff for director Claude Chabrol from Arrow Video. So Lies and Deceit, it's a good set.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do, I think, a kind of formal unboxing video for both of those, and then we can kind of do more in depth with the second set. So rounding out the reviews is one that has definitely been really hotly anticipated, and that is In the Heat of the Night, the 4K from Kino Studio Classics. This beautiful slipcover and the features. So right off the bat, I wanted to say that this is really an awesome release, but it has not only the 4K of In the Heat of the Night, but it has the two, I guess, spin-off sort of sequels, soft reboots, which I actually had never heard of the second one, the organization. So that was kind of awesome to like check that out. I don't know what else to say about this movie that hasn't been already said. It's amazing. It's one of those that was made in the one of the most turbulent times in America with like racial tension, and this comes out in 1967, and it kind of boils over into 1968, which, you know, you had really tragic stuff like the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and, you know, kind of the height of US racial tensions. So, you know, this movie is definitely a snapshot of that. How much of it has aged particularly well is, I think, up to the viewer. I know that it definitely doesn't shy away from how racially charged it is. You know, it is incredibly well made, well acted. This won 5 Oscars, including the Best Picture. And just seeing Rob Steiger and Sidney Poitier like going head to head in this sort of like just seeing two amazing actors just feeding off of one another and working so tangibly well together is just a real treat. It looks fantastic. I like the other 4K movies that they've done. They do a really nice job of like balancing the color in a way that doesn't look oversaturated and unnatural, but then it doesn't look like dull. It definitely is a little bit grain heavy, but you know, it has that nice sort of you know, textured kind of film look, which I think that film grain brings to it. Again, it's so sharp and crisp, and I had never owned this previously, so I wasn't really able to kind of compare, but just watching it with fresh eyes, in 4K, I could really tell that, there's like little background details that just sort of like just leap right out at you. And like that's just the hallmark of a great 4K. Like with like the sets and the outdoor scenes, like the night scenes in particular are like really like, again, I've seen this movie previously, but like I've never owned it on home video. But like, I can certainly like tell just how like this is like the release to get. Have you seen this film?
No, but whenever they announced this, I was glad that I kind of was slow to pick up the Criterion release because I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, great. Now there's a 4K release, so now definitely, now I'll watch it.
Yeah, and I don't think that the Criterion has the other films
I don't think they do now.
like included. And there's like commentaries, there's some featurettes that are really great. And the wonderful thing about Kino is they do a lot of features that will give a lot of great context of what you're watching. And I think it's particularly important to put a movie like this in its time and place and context. Like context is key when it comes to this movie, I think. It would be kind of interesting to watch this with like a younger audience versus like an older audience. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's aged very well. I think some of the racial stuff could have been handled with a little bit more nuanced, but I understand what they were going for. And I think in basic terms, I think they got across what they were trying to. But again, watch especially if you're new to this movie, watch the featurettes, listen to the commentary tracks. It will definitely help you kind of like put this in a better perspective. So, yeah, so with that, concludes our new release roundup. Boy, we talked about some really fantastic releases. And just to reiterate, we do have that giveaway. So all you have to do is comment on what title we talked about you are most excited for. And that is as easy as that. And you could win a free movie and an awesome movie at that. So why not? Why not do that? So, as always, if you like this video, definitely consider giving it a like, subscribing, and, again, thanks for hanging out with us.